I know, Lois. I'm very sorry. I have another pair in my office.
Well, I better get them for you. I'll meet you at the studio.
Shocking silence for a hero. George Reeves once shown as the fearless model every child admired. Strong, confident, and wearing that dazzling grin. On television, he did more than act. He convinced an entire generation that heroes could leap from comic pages into living rooms. Yet his final goodbye on June 19th, 1959, felt like an eerie scene from a ghost town. No parading fans, no flashing bulbs. Just a quiet funeral home and a scattering of mourners. Hollywood, which had plastered his face on magazine covers, offered only a shrug. How could Superman vanish without applause? Reeves's incredible journey began on January 5th, 1914 in Woolstock, Iowa, when he entered the world as George Kiefer Brewer. Before he could walk, his parents parted ways, sending the boy and his mother Helen on a restless trek that touched Kentucky, Illinois, and finally California. Each new address promised a fresh start, but also chipped at a sense of belonging. In sunny Pasadena, Helen married Italian businessman Frank Beslow, who proudly adopted George and gave him a new last name. For a brief moment, life looked peaceful, yet storm clouds returned when the marriage cracked. Helen told her son Frank had died, but years later George learned the man was alive and well. That stunning discovery shook him, planting seeds of doubt he never fully erased. Even in turmoil, the performing bug bit hard. George sang in school operettas, belted baritone notes that rattled auditorium walls, and acted in campus dramas that drew raves from teachers. After graduation, he polished his craft at Pasadena Junior College, then dove into the legendary Pasadena Playhouse, soaking up every lesson the stage could give. The Playhouse also delivered romance and connections. Amid rehearsals, he met spirited socialite Eleanor Needles, granddaughter of a Standard Oil titan, and sparks flew fast. They married in 1940 and glided through high society parties where studio scouts prowled. Though the marriage ended a decade later, Eleanora helped introduce George to producers whose favors paid future dividends. In 1939, Reeves scored his first movie credit, a blink-and-you-miss-it role as Stuart Tarleton in Gone with the Wind. Even those fleeting seconds placed him inside Hollywood's most storied epic, and he chased the momentum. Warner Brothers snatched him up, and he chose the crisp stage name George Reeves, thinking it sounded heroic. He toiled through quick westerns, wartime melodramas, and swashbucklers, often earning praise yet seldom winning top billing. Hoping for greener pastures, he jumped to 20th Century Fox, but that path collapsed just as quickly, leaving him in career limbo. A brighter spot arrived in 1942 when he played Lieutenant John Summers in the patriotic hit So Proudly We Hail, an experience that sparked real patriotism. When Pearl Harbor pulled the nation into conflict, Reeves answered the call. He enlisted in early 1943, trading tuxedos for fatigues as part of the Army Air Forces. He toured the country with the play Winged Victory, appeared in the film adaptation, and produced training shorts that taught recruits everything from cockpit safety to map reading. Even at war, he stayed in front of the camera, a blend of service and showmanship. Peace came, Hollywood changed, and Reeves returned to a cold welcome. Studios had shifted to fresh faces, and George's pre-war credits felt ancient. He auditioned everywhere, yet offers shrank to bit parts and day player gigs. To keep food on the table, he even dug cesspools for Neighbors, a grueling reminder that fame could vanish overnight. Then came a phone call that would define his life. In 1951, producers of a new television series, Adventures of Superman, wanted him to wear the cape. At first, he groaned. Many film actors viewed TV as a step down, but a job was a job. From a first episode, ratings exploded, merchandise flew off shelves, and schoolyards buzzed with kids pretending to stop bullets like their new hero. Instant fame carried an iron cage. Viewers refused to see him as anything but the Man of Steel, and casting directors echoed the bias. His contract blocked outside roles, so while tabloids claimed he was rich, he earned only about $200 per episode, a modest sum once agent fees, and taxes walked off with their share. The suit might have been bulletproof, but his wallet was not. Determined to reclaim his identity, Reeves dreamed up a travel show title port of entry. He wrote out lines, scouted Hawaiian beaches, and courted backers with energetic pitches. Imagine a new adventure every week filmed in real exotic ports. Investors smiled, then walked away, convinced it was too expensive. The project stalled, leaving George heartbroken yet still hungry for change. Meanwhile, adventures of Superman limped without him. Producers tested other actors, but none captured the blend of warmth and power he delivered. Desperate, they dangled a raise, about $5,000 a week for a short shooting schedule. That windfall could wipe out his debts. So Reeves reluctantly agreed to return, even though he worried fans would mock an older Superman. Behind the scenes, his personal life twisted into a daytime soap. His long affair with Toni Mannix, wife of MGM power broker Eddie Mannix, ended in bitter tears. Soon he proposed to lively party girl Leonore Lemon, whose loud jokes and sharper tongue startled George's quiet friends. The couple booked a wedding for June 19, 1959, followed by a honeymoon dash to Tijuana. Outsiders called it a fairy tale restart. Inside his modest Benedict Canyon home, bills kept piling. Superman tapes aired worldwide, yet syndication profits never reached his mailbox because producers owned the rights. George confessed to his mother that he was nearly broke, telling her the suit looks rich but pays poor. Still, the planned series revival and a possible move into directing looked like life rafts he dared to believe in. Then came the night that shattered everything. On June 16, 1959, a small group of guests relaxed downstairs while George headed to bed. Moments later, a single gunshot echoed through the house, and Reeves was discovered lifeless beside his own pistol. Detectives soon wrote the word suicide in their notes, yet doubt spread like wildfire. Some whispered about jealousy, others murmured of secret grudges, and the unanswered questions kept growing with each retelling. Preparations for the upcoming season showed real excitement at first. Wardrobe crews lengthened the cape to hide the actor's aging waistline. Set builders erected futuristic cityscapes, and writers teased villains bigger than any seen before. George trained with a fitness coach, hoping tighter muscles would quiet critics who questioned a middle-aged Superman. Behind closed doors, he joked with friends that a few sit-ups might save his career. Networks and toy companies waited eagerly, printing new lunch boxes and scheduling reruns to warm up the audience. Fan letters stacked 3 feet high in the studio mailroom, each begging for the Man of Steel's return. Publicists drafted statements promising bolder stunts and deeper stories that would push the hero into the next decade. Everything looked set for a triumphant comeback until that shot echoed through Benedict Canyon. The funeral's sparse turnout baffled those fans. Many never learned the service time because newspapers buried the announcement in small print and television networks covered the event with a single line of scrolling text. Studio lawyers feared bad publicity from suicide rumors and advised Reeves's friends to keep quiet, which only deepened the silence. Some admirers later claimed they discovered the burial site years after the fact and wept alone beside a granite marker. Reporters once poised to photograph crowds instead captured empty sidewalks and birds overhead. One journalist later wrote that he felt as if Metropolis itself had forgotten its guardian, a sentiment that haunts culture historians. In the end, his exit felt less like a hero's send-off and more like an unsolved cliffhanger waiting for one final episode. Decades later, collectors still cherish his red boots. Historians still debate the mystery, and television reruns keep his smile alive. Yet his lonely farewell stands as a harsh warning about the fickle nature of stardom. Even the strongest hero can fall when the spotlight fades. Picture George Reeves clutching a fresh script and grinning like a kid on the first day of summer vacation. Phyllis Coates, the very first Lois Lane on TV, stood beside him cheering him on. They believed this daring project would finally break the chains that tied him to Superman and launch a brand new chapter. Money was a missing spark, though, and when funding failed, the dream sputtered out before it ever took flight. Other offers soon rolled in, yet everyone had that familiar red and blue shadow. A live Superman stage show was set for July, and talk floated about an Australian tour. Those gigs would solve his money worries, but they would also remind him he was still stuck under the cape. He was 45, caught between two hard truths, still famous, yet never truly free. The world loved him as Superman, but he wanted more. Ambition burned inside him, and the frustration began to darken his mood. People around him could feel the weight pressing on the man who once soared on TV. Even so, the chorus of friends described George as the studio's gentlest soul. They praise his kindness, respect, and down-to-earth charm. A sign on his dressing room door read, "Honest George, the people's friend." The title fit him like a glove. From top producers to set painters, everyone said he was polite, helpful, and always ready with a smile, especially for children who saw only Superman when they looked at him. George knew that tiny fans were watching every move. He treated that responsibility like a sacred vow. During a publicity trip through the southern United States, officials named him a Kentucky colonel as a playful honor. When he walked back onto the lot, the prop crew swapped his door sign for a new version that read Honest George, also known as Colonel Reeves. That playful update felt huge because it told the world there was a real man behind the cape. George longed for people to see every side of him, actor, storyteller, and caring human. Even after tough years, co-workers remembered his warmth and humility. Yes, he brought Superman to life for millions, but to those on set, he remained Honest George, the friend everyone trusted. Off camera, he lived like a hero, too. He knew cigarettes set a bad example, so he never lit up around kids or cameras. Eventually, he quit smoking entirely, partly to protect his young fans. He guarded his private life, avoiding salacious headlines that could taint the Superman image. At public events, he shook every small hand, cracked jokes, and knelt for photos, making each child feel special. George also aimed his fame at good causes. He championed the fight against myasthenia gravis, a muscle disease that weakens the body. In 1955, he became national chairman of the Myasthenia Gravis Foundation and used his spotlight to raise money and hope. Kids saw someone who looked invincible using his voice to help the vulnerable, and that inspired them even more. Then came the darkest night. In the early hours of June 16, 1959, sometime around 1:30 in the morning, tragedy struck. George Reeves was found in his Benedict Canyon bedroom with a fatal gunshot wound to the head. He was only 45. His fiancée, Leonore Lemon, and a handful of guests were downstairs when the shot shattered the quiet. Leonore claimed she was relaxing in the living room when it happened, but actor Fred Crane later said he heard Leonore had been much closer to the bedroom. Witnesses repeated that Leonore rushed down the steps shouting, "Tell them I was down here. Tell them I was down here." Was that plea genuine or rehearsed? Doubts began swirling before dawn. Police ruled the death a suicide, yet strange details refused to sit still. No fingerprints graced the gun, and examiners reportedly found no gunpowder on George's hands. Even stranger, the fatal bullet lodged in the ceiling, and 2 more bullets lay on the floor, but nobody remembered hearing more than a single shot. There were no signs of forced entry or struggle. Still, the case closed as suicide, and the rumor mill thundered into action. Leonore later insisted George had been drowning in depression. She said he felt trapped by the Superman role and feared his career was finished. A police report even quoted her saying, "He's probably going to go shoot himself." Moments later, a gunshot echoed, and she allegedly added, "See there, I told you so." Those chilling words deepened the mystery. George was laid to rest in Mountain View Cemetery in Altadena, California. Within a year, he received a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and in 1985, DC Comics listed him among 50 visionaries who made the company great. But honors could not quiet the questions. His mother, Helen Beslow, never believed he took his own life. Certain investigators agreed the official inquiry felt rushed and sloppy. Helen hired famed attorney Jerry Giesler, who pushed for deeper answers. A second autopsy followed, hoping to shine a bright light on any hidden truth. Though decades have passed, the debate still rages. Was it despair, foul play, or some shadowy twist the public may never know? What no one disputes is a legacy of Honest George, an entertainer who tried to live up to the hero he played, spreading kindness wherever he went, and leaving behind a riddle that continues to fascinate fans and historians alike. The second autopsy dropped like a thunderbolt. Doctor confirmed most of the first report, yet they spotted fresh bruises on George's head and body that no one could explain. Each mark whispered a new question, and the mystery only grew louder. After weeks of digging, attorney Jerry Giesler saw no clear proof of murder and slowly backed away from the case. He finally agreed with the police that George had pulled the trigger himself. Even so, Hollywood gossip never cooled down. Actor Rory Calhoun told a reporter, "No one in Hollywood believed the suicide story." Big names such as Alan Ladd and Gig Young share that doubt. The rumors soon aimed at Eddie Mannix, a mighty executive at MGM. George had loved Eddie's wife, Toni Mannix, for years, and some insiders thought that dangerous passion led to bloodshed. The book Hollywood Kryptonite by Sam Kashner and Nancy Schoenberger stirred the pot even more, repeating whispers that Eddie had ties to men who ran with the mob. Could a secret order from a furious husband have silenced Superman forever? Heat rose in June 1959 when George broke up with Toni and became engaged to fiery socialite Leonore Lemon. People magazine's June 2025 issue claims this twist poured gasoline on an already blazing feud. Some believe powerful figures wanted the matter buried, and George's sudden engagement made quiet threats explode into deadly action. Today his death still sets tongues wagging across studio lots. Some say he fought hidden sadness until he cracked. Others insist the smiling surface masked dark betrayals behind locked doors. The funeral that wasn't. Everyone expected a grand farewell for television's first Superman. Instead, his July 1st, 1959 funeral felt like a ghost story. The service at Wayside Chapel in Los Angeles was so hush-hush that only a handful of close friends, Noel Neal, Don DeFore, and Gig Young, slipped inside. No studio bosses, no flashing cameras, not even a single A-list star. Why did Tinseltown steer clear? Insiders whisper one word: fear. George's death came wrapped in scandal, complete with rumors of murder and mob payback. Friends quietly admit that attendance was discouraged. People worried that saying goodbye would put them in the crosshairs of Hollywood power players. So the chapel stayed silent, and the emptiness screamed louder than any eulogy. That quiet service became a cruel symbol. Fame can vanish the moment a story turns messy, and friends can melt away when danger circles. In the end, Hollywood abandoned its own Man of Steel. Hollywood returns to the mystery. Decades later, the case caught fire again. In 2006, the film Hollywoodland stormed theaters and reopened every painful wound. Ben Affleck played George Reeves. Diane Lane stepped in as Toni Mannix, and Adrian Brody played a fictional detective named Louis Simo, loosely modeled on real-life private I'm Milo Sparilio. The movie mixed fact with stylish fiction and marched through every major theory. One scene hints that Leonore Lemon accidentally fired the fatal shot during a drunken fight. Another fingers Eddie Mannix as a jealous husband who ordered revenge. A third imagines Toni herself sneaking through a private entrance and pulling the trigger in a fit of rage. The final angle shows George so crushed by career troubles and heartbreak that he ended his own life. Hollywoodland leans towards suicide, yet leaves viewers haunted by doubt. Brody's detective starts out craving headlines, but ends a film broken and humbled, turning his focus back to family after watching The Price of Fame. A digital ghost in the Flash. George's image flashed back in 2023 inside the DC movie The Flash. A computer-generated Superman based on Reeves floated across the screen for a moment meant as tribute. Not everyone cheered. Some fans felt the shiny effect came off as cold, given the tragic swirl that followed the real man, the larger story. George Reeves lived a life of sharp twists, some thrilling, others crushing. He chased big dreams, dazzled children, played guitar on tour, and fought to show he was more than one role. He helped charities, shook every hand, and never acted superior. Yet fame boxed him in. Hollywood loved Superman, but struggled to use the man behind the cape. His tale is not only about how he died. It is also about how he lived in bright light and deep shadow. Crowds roared when he flew on screen, yet many nights he walked alone, hunting for respect, freedom, and meaning. People still talk about him because they see something real, a talented man who tried to matter. Kids adored him. Co-workers called him Honest George, and audiences today still feel his pull. He may have felt invisible at times, but his legacy refuses to fade. Thanks for staying with us on this roller coaster story. George Reeves' life glowed with high triumphs and deep struggles. If his journey moved you, if it stunned, saddened, or inspired, tap the like button so others can find this video. For more deep dives into Hollywood legends and untold mysteries, hit subscribe and ring that notification bell. Until next time, remember, some heroes soar on screen while others live inside our memories.